Welcome back to JetBlue Park in Fort Myers, Florida, home of Red Sox Spring Training 2014. This is day 5 of spring training for the defending World Series champions. I'm joined as always by Alex Speier, the senior writer for the Red Sox and Major League Baseball for WEEI.com. I'm Mike Petraglia. Here's the story on day number 5. We had John Henry speak earlier in the week. We had Tom Werner speak on Thursday. Today, Friday, it was Larry Lucchino's turn. And he did not miss an opportunity, Alex Speier, to take yet another shot at the inimitable New York Yankees.
Poke the bear. The old-fashioned, inimitable New York Yankees spending ways. In discussing the contrast between the Red Sox and Yankees, I think that oftentimes he's tried to manufacture a difference between those two organizations and how they conduct business. Frankly, I think that a lot of those distinctions were falling by the wayside at the time when the Red Sox were losing, were kind of seeing their success diminish. The Red Sox were jumping into the deep end of the free agent pool, failed on Teixeira, got outbid by the Yankees, signed John Lackey to a long-term deal, Adrian Gonzalez, Carl Crawford. We remember how all of those turned out, but the Red Sox have become a leaner operation model, and so now when Larry Lucchino says that we're a very different animal in his term, and cites the old-fashioned, inimitable, big spending ways of the Yankees, there's something to that, because the Red Sox aren't paying anyone more than $16.5 million on their roster right now, and it felt like the Yankees signed about 25 people this offseason who cost more than that.
We should also point out Mark Teixeira yet again is hurt. The New York Yankees have had a horrible run of luck with Mark Teixeira, or lack thereof.
Or have they? Because that's the nature of the long-term gamble.
That is a fair point.
That's a reason why the Red Sox have kind of embraced this model in which, in Lucchino's terms, there is a rebuttable presumption against signing these guys to long-term deals. It is rebuttable, so they will make exceptions, Lucchino said, but by and large, they feel like they've found this kind of sweet spot where you're better off, if you're going to commit to a guy for the long term, make it your own guy while he's in his prime years.
Now, yesterday the news broke that the Red Sox ownership, management, Ben Cherington, etc., and David Ortiz and his agent, Fern Kuza, had finally...
We broke that news tracks, didn't we?
We did indeed.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the person I'm speaking to right now broke that news.
It's a we.
It's all a team. It is all a team here at WEEI. But yesterday was the news, of course, that Fern Kuza, David Ortiz, Ben Cherington, and the Red Sox formally sat down. No deal offered today. Larry Lucchino said, indeed, we'd love to see David Ortiz finish with the Red Sox. We want to see it make it happen. Obviously, there is some work yet to be done. But and everybody knew that, I think, Alex. I think that's safe to say. But the other name that came up today, certainly in terms of the long-term future of the Red Sox, Jon Lester. Those two names, how Larry Lucchino addressed it, encouraged, discouraged, that they would like to get long-term deals done with Lester and extend David.
Pretty clearly the answer is yes on both. Lucchino said that the Red Sox are, quote, eager to resolve, unquote, the situation with Ortiz. Even though they take nothing for granted that they'll be able to find common ground, they do think that, I don't, clearly, because the parameters in terms of length are pretty clear, there doesn't need to be that much negotiating, right, that would go on with Ortiz. But Lucchino also said that the team would sit down, was hoping to sit down with Jon Lester and his agents later in this spring. So I think that, as we've said all along, given Lester's expressed willingness to sign for something that is less than top-of-the-market dollars, Lucchino called that one of his highlights of the offseason, Lester's expression of his passion to stay in Boston for the duration of his career, and to eschew the idea of free agency in order to see if he can keep this relationship with the only organization he's ever played for going. I've always been under the presumption that they would probably find common ground sometime this spring with an announcement shortly after opening day. That may or may not prove the case, but obviously the fact that they're planning on sitting down with him gives you some kind of indication of where things are going.
Now, Larry Lucchino certainly made it appear that he felt that it was very genuine interest on the behalf of Jon Lester, that he does want to stay. He wants to do whatever he can to make it happen, get it done. But you had the opportunity to ask Larry, why didn't the deal with Jacoby Ellsbury get done?
Right. Well, he said that there's this rebuttable presumption about whether or not you can sign players to long-term deals. Why didn't Jacoby Ellsbury rebut the presumption? And his answer was sometimes the market just takes you to a place that is too far beyond the comfort zone. And so he noted that Ellsbury ended up with a really nice contract, essentially. But he didn't, of course, want to. He said that there are players who you really want to retain to whom you sometimes have to say goodbye. And I think that's a fair way of putting it. The Red Sox were in a position where they probably got the negotiations. What Ellsbury got from the Yankees would have taken them to a place of some discomfort. And moreover, they had a replacement in their organization, a potential replacement in a guy like Jackie Bradley Jr. The Yankees don't have a center fielder like that on their horizon at all.
Larry Lucchino was also addressed, or asked about, I should say, whether or not he wants to become commissioner, and there was a presumption in the answer, in the question that was asked of him, that Bud Selig, approaching 80 years of age, would be stepping down. Larry Lucchino's answer was pretty fascinating, I thought. First of all, I wouldn't assume, Lucchino said, that Bud Selig is stepping down at any time, soon, maybe this year or the next year.
Bud Selig will be the commissioner in 2150.
Even if he has to get out of his own grave to do so.
No. I think that he might have kind of found the secret, the secret to longevity and eternal life.
Well, it's still fascinating because the question
will he be suspended for PEDs if he has indeed found that secret?
I'm sure he'll be tested.
Yes.
But anyway, the fact of the matter is, the name Larry Lucchino is going to be out there in terms of whether or not he's interested. He said today he loves where he is. He has no interest in the job of being the commissioner of Major League Baseball. Your reaction to that?
Not surprised. Look, Lucchino has done an extraordinary job in Boston at this point. He's been an essential part of 3 championship teams at this juncture. He's also 68, and so that's probably not the ideal age that you would identify for someone who's about to begin a new job that is meant to be a job not just for a year or two, but instead, in the case of Selig, he's now entering year 19 as the commissioner.
Then why couldn't Larry take on the job?
Well, I don't think that I don't think that there are a lot of people who plan on working past the age of 85, which is what you're basically suggesting Lucchino would be doing if he were to stay on for 19 years, if he were to start it now. So I think that he is pretty happy. His legacy is pretty secure. Look, he got the most. He was the architect, or at least the orchestrator of the construction of the most important ballpark in modern baseball history.
No question.
He has now overseen a franchise that has gone from one that couldn't win a World Series in 86 years to one that has 3 championships over the course of a 10-season span. So I think that he's pretty comfortable with where he's at, and as much as he is driven in his job, and he remains remarkably energetic for everything that he does, to ask someone who's at this stage of their life to uproot themselves in order to be the commissioner of Major League Baseball that's hard to fathom. Moreover, whether or not he would have the support necessary to do it is another significant question, because, as he acknowledged, he's made enemies.
And he's made friends and he's made enemies, and he definitely acknowledged that. So that is essentially his acknowledgement that maybe it indeed is not the perfect fit for him at this time. Let's move on field, Alex, and the one name, the one bigger name that's joining the Red Sox, expected on Saturday after he arrives Friday night here in camp, presumably, Chris Capuano, 35-year-old veteran left-hander, native of West Springfield, Massachusetts. He is expected in camp. You expect him, John Farrell would seem to think, to start in the bullpen.
Absolutely. He would represent the kind of 6th starter depth option at the start of the season. He's pretty interesting because for the last 3 years, he's been a very credible starter. He's been roughly a 500 pitcher with an ERA right around 4. So a guy who's been, if you're a believer in the stat of ERA plus, which measures ERA relative to the league, he's been about 10% worse than league average, which is actually roughly what the Red Sox wanted and got from Ryan Dempster. So he's available to them in that role as a depth starter. But unlike Dempster, where there was some question about precisely how he might fit in the bullpen, Capuano has had some pretty interesting success in the bullpen, and specifically in his career against left-handers, whom he's held to an on-base percentage of lower than 300. This is a guy who has a chance to be a pretty interesting left-on-left option or full-inning option at various stages of games, who has a meaningful role whether he's in the rotation or the bullpen, and gives the Sox kind of dual layers of depth protection as a result.
And also could give the Red Sox, at least to start the season, if the starters are healthy, 3 lefties in the bullpen with Craig Breslow and also Andrew Miller projected, I would say, safe to say at this point, to be on the roster.
Absolutely. And so, the fact that Breslow is coming off of an intense workload that went through the postseason, the fact that Miller is working his way back from a half season, means that having that third lefty in the mix is quite beneficial in terms of regulating the workloads of the other two guys.
Well, the clouds are in the sky for the first time here at Red Sox spring training, but no clouds in terms of the perspective and the approach of the Red Sox.
Surely
it's
that's
all
not true.
It's all sunshine. Didn't you hear Larry Lucchino tell Dennis and Callahan and tell us at the press conference, this is camp feel good. It's camp good vibrations. He's a big Beach Boys fan, so that was his way of quoting that.
Yeah, I mean, it is, but every spring training, well, almost every spring training tends to have the whole Hakuna Matata thing. The fascinating thing is that the Red Sox have had the last two spring trainings that were nightmares, right? Or at least, not nightmares. Last year was actually a very productive one for them, but one in which they had to kind of address this baggage of the past and in which they had to strike up this defensive posture. Obviously not so this year. In fact, one of the interesting things to me, Trags, is that when John Farrell spoke, he was asked, so what stands out for you this year? And he offered one of John Farrell's big phrases, in a word. And so in this case, in a word, trust. And I remember what it was like 2 years ago in 2012 when Bobby Valentine showed up here.
There was none.
Well, he explicitly stated, this is going to be a difficult atmosphere in which to build trust. And so the 2-year life cycle of the Red Sox, or the 24-month life cycle of the Red Sox, is a fascinating study in contrast. But are there concerns? Yes. Let's not get carried away and kind of suggest that this is the next big red machine right now. But yeah, certainly the Red Sox face fewer questions than a lot of other teams in Major League Baseball at this stage.
All right, Day 5 is in the books. He's Alex Speier. I'm Mike Petraglia, live from JetBlue Park in Fort Myers, Florida, WEEI.com.